Hey guys, welcome back to Crime Time with Jess. If you are new here, welcome. If you are not, welcome back. So, you see the title, Tammy Menendez, and what will her marriage to Erik look like if he's released from prison? This is something that I've been thinking about just out of curiosity. I started last night. I wanted to buy her book. She released a book in 2005, and I've always known this book existed, never read it. So I went on Amazon, started looking for it. The book is out of print. I couldn't find it on Amazon. I couldn't find it on Abe's Books. I couldn't find it anywhere, right? So I looked on YouTube. I'm like, did anyone review this book ever? I'm scrolling, could not find it. Of course, I end up finding it on Reddit. Some wonderful person did PDF files of the entire book. So I started reading it last night. I'm up to chapter 3. Um, I want my plan is to just read this book aloud. I want to do that in 3 or 4 live streams, but I've just found it interesting so far. I want to go ahead and start with an interview that Tammy did in 2005. This is the same year that she released her book. The book is titled They Said We Would Never Make It. So this was her interview with Entertainment Tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and play that now.
What made you sit down and write that very first letter to Erik?
I watched the first trial on Court TV, and I saw the pain that he was going through. I could sense a pain. It was after I saw him on the stand, and I saw the pain, and I wanted to write one letter and tell him that I supported him. And I didn't expect him to write back. If he did, that's fine. If he didn't, that's fine too. I was going to write one letter, and that was it. And he wrote back about a month later, and a short letter, because he was getting a lot of mail at that time.
Right. He was pretty infamous.
Yes, he was. And, he wrote back a month later, and then gradually we started corresponding. And my husband knew that we were corresponding.
Yeah, because a lot of people are like, no, okay, when Tammy wrote to Erik, was she married?
Right.
And you were happily married.
Happily married. And he knew, he read the letters, and, everything was fine. He didn't mind. He thought it was kind of cool. He watched the trial with me. So, that was fine. But it was the compassion, I guess, that went out to him to write the first letter.
What did you think the first time you finally met face to face?
Erik was full of energy and very bubbly, and I'm thinking to myself, how can he be so upbeat and still live in this place? It was the first time I'd ever been in a maximum security prison, and I was scared. I was really scared to be there. But when he walked in, he's just so happy and bubbly, and I think he was happy that I was there, but still.
That you hadn't turned around and gone the other way?
Left, right.
Halfway through the process?
Right, yeah. So
it's not easy getting in.
It's not easy. You have to go through a lot of checkpoints. And
she details this in the first couple chapters of the book, which I've read last night. She details how difficult it was to even find Folsom Prison, because it's essentially hidden, really. And so she had trouble even finding the prison. And then I thought she did a really good job of describing the dread, the sadness when you enter a prison. If you've never been in a jail, if you've never been in a prison, consider yourself lucky. Unfortunately, I have. And the way she described it, I thought was very, very good. She described it pretty perfectly, of just the overall sense of sadness, again, that you feel when you walk into that place and those doors shut, it's just literally a feeling of dread, and you feel it just wafting in the air. And she did an excellent job of describing that.
You know, that's really, really difficult sometimes. Every single day that I drive to the prison, I don't know for sure if I'm going to get in, the dress code or something. So yeah, it's very difficult. But yeah, the first time I met him, he just was so full of life, you know.
Did you feel anything that first meeting?
I thought that I could sense that I was attracted to him, but we had been writing for so long that we were, like best friends, even though we talked on the phone a lot. And
I find that interesting what she just said, because I'm going to show you guys in a little bit, but in the book, she says that when they come face to face, that she felt nothing. She just didn't feel anything. She thought he was cute, but she just felt nothing. And she said, if there was something like happening between us, I was unaware of it. So I find that kind of interesting what she just said as compared to the book. But yeah.
written letters for a long time and years. And so when I first met him, I felt like I knew him. Then it was reality. When he walked in, it was like, there he is. This is real. So.
When did you?
And I also find that interesting what she just said, that she felt like he was her best friend, because in the book, and I'm going to show that to you guys as well, she says that up until she met him, he was just a footnote in her life. And that's her words, a footnote. So she wrote him during their first trial, which was in 1993. They did not meet until 1997 in person at Folsom State Prison. So that's 4 years of writing, and he wrote about his pain and his dreams, his thoughts. That's a long time to correspond with someone and then just describe them as a footnote in your life, but then simultaneously say that they were your best friend. So I don't know if she just had very mixed, crazy feelings about this. I think she did. But it was really obvious to me just in the first couple of chapters that I read. I don't know Tammy's entire backstory, not yet, because she does write about it in the book, and I will get there. But it was very clear that she had experienced a lot of trauma with men. There was just this, and she even describes herself as being very cold, very shy around males. And that coldness really comes through, in my opinion, even in the first couple of chapters towards Erik. So,
First think, I'm falling in love with Erik Menendez.
Well, I denied it for a long time. And I probably had been visiting him for 6 months, and I kept finding myself wanting to go back. Every single time I would leave, I would want to go back. And I would think, this can't be good, but my heart just kept bringing me there. And it was after several visits that, I felt I was falling, and there was no way back. There was no way back.
Are you glad you fell in love with him, or do you wish maybe you'd never met?
I'm talking Christmas, Halloween, 4th of July, game day, whatever. Jellyfish is permanent lighting for all.
No, I'm glad that I've married him and fell in love with him. It has given me a lot of life lessons. And the path that I'm on is a very spiritual, good path. And Erik has really helped me on the path and brought me there. I couldn't have did it without him. He healed me in so many ways. And I don't think I'd be the person I am today without him in my life.
How many people say, Tammy, You're crazy. You're married to Erik Menendez.
Well, it takes a turn as soon as people find out. And you know, I still have to tell people on a, you know, daily basis, you know, wherever I'm at, if I'm in a certain situation where I have to tell people. And it's not, they take a step back. They don't take a step forward. It's back. And, you know, I have to deal with that. And, but I'm willing to deal with that now. Before I wasn't.
Did you think Erik was going to ask you to marry him?
In the back of my mind, I always wondered if he would. And I thought that maybe at a different time when he did it that day, I was very surprised, very surprised that he'd asked.
Were you hoping he would, or were you hoping he wouldn't?
I was hoping someday he would. I think it was a little soon. So yes, I was hoping that he would eventually.
And what did you say to yourself? What kind of conversation did you have with yourself? Like, I want this man to propose to me, but this is going to be a really tough road.
So just to give a little context, 6 months after their first visit in 1997, Erik proposes in 1998. They married June 12th of 1999 in Folsom Prison. So it was only 6 months after they met in person that he went ahead, proposed, and they got married.
Well, I just can't see myself without him. And so, you know, the marriage was something that was good. Within the prison system, you really have to be a wife to get any information and to take care of anything that happens with Erik. You know, and at that, it's a feat, even though you're married to him. You know, so that was part of the reason. Another part is that, you know, like I said, I can't see myself without him.
What would be the first thing you'd do if you and Erik could actually be alone?
Well, the restraints on the physical contact is very, very difficult at times. And
yeah, what is allowed and what isn't allowed?
Well, this prison, the Folsom prison where he was at before was a lot stricter. You could only hold hands, and you can kiss when you go in and you can kiss when you leave. But other than that, that's it.
That's it. No conjugal visits.
Nothing. No. And now this prison, the visiting room is more relaxed, which is good for people that are visiting because it helps bond families. And you got to remember that Erik, Monday through Friday, he doesn't have any hugs, or so human touch is something that's important to him. And growing up in the household with his parents and everything, he was restricted from hugging and a lot of stuff. So now he's living that too. So he, you know, it's really good for him to be able to sit close and be next to him.
Being with him makes all the loneliness worth it.
The loneliness can wrap you up and swallow you whole a lot of times because he does go on lockdown. And the lockdowns and dealing with everything that he deals with inside the prison is very difficult. That is extremely painful at times. So, but then you have the highs and lows, and the highs are better than the lows.
What's the biggest misconception about your husband?
That he's a cold-blooded murderer. You know, a lot of people, that's what's portrayed that he is, and he's not. You could spend 5 minutes with him. He's the most caring, kind, compassionate person anybody, you know, you'd ever meet. And
the libs think they've dealt the death blow to conservatives. They have not. They have not had a...
You know, it's the people that haven't met him that speculate. Once they meet him, you know, that's drowned out by the type of person that he is. And he's just, you know, a wonderful human being that really, you know, made a mistake in his life, a big mistake in his life, and now is paying the consequences. I've met his family members, and I can understand what drove him to do what he did. And he pays for it daily. There's not a day that goes by that he doesn't think about, you know, what he's done. He's very sorry for what he's done, and he lives with the grief he endures the grief every day with the reality of what he did. And, you know, I'm very forgiving, I guess, and I understand, you know, what happened in the household that you know, led up to what happened.
Do you think Erik will ever forgive himself?
No,
No.
he will never. No. I know, I see his pain when he talks about it. He's in a lot of pain, you know, and knowing what he did. Erik Menendez he was born innocent and growing up in a home that had very detrimental ramifications. He was only 18 when the murders happened, and he is somebody now that's living in prison, and you know, the abuse continues in the prison, and it's just another extension of what he went through, you know, growing up in that household.
What kinds of things do you hear about Erik that drive you crazy?
Well, I used to watch the media shows on him because they keep running them. And now I don't anymore because it's all speculation and there's not too many truths about Erik. So I get really upset at the things that people say when they've never met him because it's all speculation. So,
And this entire stream for me is going to be speculation because, and it's going to be for the public in general. I mean, you kind of have to expect that. We do not know Erik Menendez personally. None of us. Well, most of us. And so all we can go on is what we've seen in the trial, stuff like this. Whatever is presented in the media is what we know. So yeah, there's always going to be a lot of speculation when you have two young guys that murder their parents. The Menendez story is a very complicated, nuanced story. So yeah, people are probably always going to speculate about things.
Yeah.
it's just over the years, everything that's been on has, you know, taken a toll on Erik too. You know, he's not the type of person that people think he is.
You seem like such a calm person, and yet you have chosen a life where there is no predictability and nothing but obstacles every day. How are you doing it?
I think I would disagree with that. I think there's nothing but predictability. I mean, given that, yeah, there's lockdowns and things like that, but it's extremely predictable because he's in prison. So, you know, he's not going anywhere. She always knows where he is. And this is where we could kind of start talking about Hybristophilia because, you know, Tammy seems like a perfectly normal woman here, and I'm not going to say otherwise because I don't know her. But any woman that writes a prisoner in jail that is serving, you know, a long sentence, a life sentence, and starts a romantic relationship with them has hybristophilia. Um, and I'm sure most of you guys know what it is, but if you don't, it's women with this condition typically have had really traumatic relationships with men and other men. And so dating someone in prison is safe almost. And usually people with hybristophilia have control issues because in past relationships they haven't had control, and so they desire that in some way. And having your partner being locked away in prison, you always know where they are. They're heavily controlled, and it's appealing and it's safe. And you know, she talked about this in her book about feeling very safe with him, finding peace with him. You know, she describes being in this prison completely out of her element. She's never been inside of a prison or a jail before. It's this bleak, terrible place. And yet she's wondering aloud in the book, I feel such peace with him. Is this why I came to see him, for this peace? So but we'll finish this.
It's very difficult. With Erik and the difficulties comes the passion to change things, and with adversity comes knowledge and spiritual lessons and everything.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but you're human too.
and it is really difficult, but Erik gets me through a lot of my emotional upsets during the week. Just a phone call from him, if I'm having a bad day, it enlightens me and makes me feel 100% better.
Mhm.
So with all the downfalls comes the really good part of being with him.
So even in what she just finished saying, it just makes me wonder, you know, just a phone call from him, if she's having a bad day, makes her feel better. But again, what does that look like going from, because this year they celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. Okay. And she acknowledged that on TikTok, and made a little TikTok for Erik, like thanking him and, celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary. But, I have to be a realist, and I don't want to wish bad for any of these people. This isn't that. It's me wondering aloud, because have they been married for 25 years? Yes. On paper, through letters and phone calls and visits. But that is just not real life. And I think any of us that have been in long-term relationships or are married, we understand that. So what does life look like when he gets out and they go from just phone calls or letters or sometimes visits to being in each other's space all of the time? You know, Erik being in prison for 35 years, he is essentially institutionalized, you know, very used to highly controlled environments, and all of that. So when you're suddenly free and you're in a totally different time, number one, I think the culture shock for him is going to be massive. That is one thing he's going to have to deal with. He went to jail in what, 1989, 1990, somewhere in there. Think about what life was like then as compared to now. Just social media itself is going to be a culture shock. I mean, clearly, him and Lyle are both aware that social media exists and yada, yada, yada. But what happens when a phone is actually put in their hands and they have free reign, sort of like Gypsy Rose? They have free reign to interact on social media and do these kinds of things. I mean, Erik, in my opinion, has matured. He's 53 years old now, and he's matured into what I would call a silver fox, you know. But there's already women that are wanting him. And, I want to show you guys what Erik and Tammy looked like and then what they look like today. So here is some old pictures. We're just going to go through some pictures that they have taken in prison. Obviously, this is when they were much younger. We'll just go through these quickly. Tammy is a very small, petite woman. Um, I find it interesting that Erik married a woman, a blonde-haired woman, much like his mother, an attractive blonde-haired woman, much like his mother. Lyle initially did first, because Lyle was married to a woman, blonde hair, very attractive. He ended up actually cheating on her in prison by corresponding with other women, and they got a divorce. He is now married to a woman named Rebecca Sneed. They look crazy alike. It's very weird, but she's a brunette. So either way, they both picked initially blondes. That I feel like their attractiveness, the blondness, does resemble their mother in some way. It's another picture of Erik and Tammy. And I find it interesting too, like the little backgrounds the prison does. Here's them again. You could tell they're getting a little older in these pictures. Her hair has changed somewhat. I don't know why this picture of Erik creeps me out. I I don't know why, it just does, but either way. This is Tammy Menendez today. So, as you can see, I'm going to zoom in even more here. This up here in the upper right-hand corner is Erik current day. And this is Tammy current day. So, Erik is 10 years younger than Tammy. He's 53, she's 63. Again, they've been married for 25 years. We just saw what Tammy looked like. And I'm just going to be real here, okay? Because there's nothing, I'm not shaming her for her looks or anything of that nature. It's just we all age. Unfortunately, I hate it. I'm sure the rest of you too. But we all age, and she has aged. So when they initially got married, and for a long time, I think Tammy was a very attractive woman, but again, just like everyone else, she is aged. What does that look like when Erik is released from jail? And again, he's probably most likely definitely going to be exposed to social media. As you can see again, I think he's aged very well. And just what happens when all of these women are going to throw themselves. Can you imagine like what his DMs are going to look like? If I had one piece of unsolicited advice for the Menendez brothers, it would be to stay off of social media. If they're going to have accounts, and I'm just going to assume that they are, I would keep them so private, limited to only family, maybe, some really close friends or something like that. But I would have none of my social media public, because the internet is a very harsh, nasty place. And we all know that. Um, Whether, however you feel about Gypsy Rose is up to you. I've done several videos on her. I'm not a fan, but I think we would be remiss to not look at the parallels of these cases, just in terms of they both murdered their parents or a parent. They both have done time in jail. Gypsy doing significantly less time in jail than the Menendez brothers, but both doing time in jail. And then when Gypsy was released, there was this ton of support. I remember even feeling like, oh my God, she's actually going to be released. Like, wow. And I feel the same way with them. That public support quickly turned into the negative for her. And, now when she posts on TikTok, she turns off the comments because 99% of them are hate filled. And even now, I would say a large majority, the comment sections that I read, large majority of people would like to see them released and feel that they should be. But there's still those comments that from people saying, they're murderers, they should never be let out. And I think that will only intensify when they do get out, and if they expose themselves too much on social media to the public. So that would be my advice, just to stay away from that. But people do what they want to do. It does seem like they have a good thing in place, because their lawyer has said that they have a plan for them. They do have a lot of family, support. Oops. They have a lot of family support, which is different from Gypsy Rose. She does have a little family support, but that's a whole nother story. But they had 24 family members show up at the press conference. That's a very large amount of people to show up from the family. And so, I think they're going to be given the best possible chance to succeed, but humans are human. You know, I understand that, Erik alleges, and always going to have to say alleged, because Kitty and Jose are dead. Um, so we'll never hear from them ever. We're going to have to take their word for it, or you don't have to. But either way, I have to say alleged, uh, even though I believe them. I do believe that sexual abuse was present for them and that happened to them. So I wonder how that's going to play in. Erik's been locked up since he was 18 years old. Again, he's 53. So is he going to get out and at 53 years old just say, I'm just happy with my wife? He's used to confinement in jail. Maybe he's going to want to stay in the house. Or is he going to kind of go a little buck wild, like, holy crap, I'm free, and I want to go do all of the things. And, will this sexual assault play into him not being promiscuous with women, or wanting to do that? Or will human nature just take over and he, falls into that with women that are definitely going to be inboxing him, such and such. But again, here is them today. This is what they both look like. Here's Tammy again. And this is something I was thinking about too. I was looking at this picture, and she has a Tesla, clearly. And it's funny because even before I looked at this picture, I was thinking to myself, the most benign things to us, getting in the car and going to the store, or, just really simple things to us, grabbing our phones and, searching up something on YouTube. That's very normal for many people. These guys haven't rode in a car with someone like this in 35 years. And I hate to keep making comparisons, but I just, it makes sense too. I watched the Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup. You know, the first image of her shown is getting into Ryan Anderson's car, and you could just see it written all over her face that it was extremely overwhelming just to be in a car. And I think she talked about that was nerve-wracking. So just these very tiny things. Imagine the last time you got in a car was in the late 80s, you know, and now you're getting into a Tesla, a highly, technology driven car, a car that doesn't even need gas. It's electric. I think these things are just going to be really shocking to them in ways, and how they deal with that, I don't know. It remains to be seen. And as much as I'm curious, just as how this is going to play out, I would still give the advice to, stay off of social media. Here's another picture of Tammy. Did I show this picture already? Maybe not. But you see her Tesla, phone in hand. She's been living in the real world this whole time. Erik has not. And this is her as well. You see how petite she is. She's just very short woman. And yeah. So that's Tammy. This is a very old picture of them, clearly. Giving a little smooch there. And even at this picture, you could tell that they were in love. I just wonder what what happens when they get released. Does this love sustain? Does it stay? Does he get distracted with all of the things of the world and do something else? Because I'm not an ageist. My significant other is 12 years younger than me. We have a bigger age gap than they do. So but Tyler and I have lived together, all of these years and will continue to do so. And I think that is the difference because they've never lived together. They have never consummated their marriage. They have never done the most simple things like just walk down the street and hold each other's hand or go out to dinner together or you know lay down together and have pillow talk. None of these things have ever been experienced. And I seen someone comment the other day and say, they have 25 years worth of experiences. Well, yes, but what is the context of those experiences? Phone calls, letters, and that's about as far as it goes. Because what other experiences could you have possibly had with him serving a life sentence? And something else that I've thought about with Tammy is there has to be some part of her, I would assume, that is very excited that he's getting out. And then some part of her that, again, I would assume would be scary to her in a way. You know, they resigned themselves since 2005, which is why I think she put out the book in that year and did interviews because they had exhausted all of their appeals and everything and just resigned themselves that they would be in jail until their deaths. We now know that that is likely to change soon enough. So, is there some part of her, I wonder, that is scared of this? That, oh my gosh, I thought that this was the way this was going to play out, but now, well, he's going to actually live with me. We're going to sleep together in the same bed and most likely have, intimate moments and be around each other all of the time. And he's going to be dealing with his own personal journey of just rediscovering the world. What does that look like for them? It's a very curious thought for me, at least. But this is Lyle and his wife Rebecca. And again, they people have commented this. I noticed it myself. I feel like they oddly look alike. There's just something about them. I don't know if it's the eyes, but there's just something about them. They just sort of look like they belong together. Tammy and Erik, I think they make a very cute couple. I think they're both attractive people and they made a very attractive couple. So, but that's the pictures of the two brothers with their wives. And I don't know exactly how long Lyle has been married. I know it's been 20 years or more. So these are both long-term prison marriages. And I want to read something. Um, Once Gascon, the DA, recommended that you know, life without parole be taken off, she gave a statement. And it says, on Wednesday evening, the wife of Erik Menendez, Tammy, spoke out to thank supporters and family members for keeping the case in the spotlight. Quote, Erik feels deeply grateful and profoundly humbled by the overwhelming outpouring of love and support from his family today. She wrote on X, formerly known as Twitter. Their belief in him and encouragement, care, and understanding mean more to him than words can express. If you guys have been following this, then you will know that they were obviously supposed to spend life without parole in prison, but there was new evidence that came forward which allowed their attorney to file a habeas corpus. Um, and that new evidence was a letter that Erik had written to his cousin Andy, who's close to 8 months before the murders. So this letter was written in December of 1998, and I want to read it in full. It's not long, but it says, "I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know. I'll make it through this. I can handle it, Andy. I need to stop thinking about it." Now, when he says in this letter, he warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle, I will tell you that when Erik told Lyle that the sexual abuse was still occurring, it was 5 days from the day he told Lyric. I just combined their names into Lyric. But it was 5 days from Erik telling Lyle that the sexual abuse was still occurring until they murdered their parents. So I think that should say a little something as well. Here's another, older picture. This had to be around Christmas time. We noticed the background, but here is what they look like. And so again, after all these years, do people go that long with, no sexual relations? Do they go that long and get to a point where it's like, I don't really need that. I mean, I haven't had it in 25, 35 years. So who really cares about sex? Or does it go the opposite direction and like, holy cow, I haven't had sex since I was 18 years old and I kind of want to do that. You know, I don't know. I really, again, maybe it's a weird thing to be curious about, but I'm curious about it because I feel like these types of things are definitely going to play into whether or not this marriage works, if this marriage sustains, and I think he is going to want to rerun his life. Some bitch is saying, I wonder that son of a bitch. I really do. He's going to want to rerun his life. And, you know, the documentary, I don't know if you guys watched it or not. Again, it just came out not all that long ago on Netflix. And I'm not talking about the one that Ryan Murphy did. Ryan Murphy is the guy that created American Horror Story. I actually loved it. It's the one that you see with the Milli Vanilli, not that one. There is an actual documentary that was done right after that. The Menendez brothers um, agreed to participate in. It was the first time in 30 years that they told their story together again. And also, the prosecutor from the first trial that ended up in a hung jury for both of them, she agreed to be on this documentary as well. So it was very interesting listening to them talk. And one of the things that Erik said, they asked him, basically, why did you agree to do this? And he said, well, you know, eh, I'm never getting out of jail and I'm not going to live too much longer. so I might as well speak out. Um, Basically, speak out to help people, because what else does he have to do? So this turn of events where it's pretty likely that, he's going to get out is crazy. And Tammy said that he had no words when he found out, that they were potentially going to get out. He said to her that he has no words and that he was very overwhelmed. And I could see why that is. I want to say, don't quote me on this. You can Google it, I guess, yourself. But I think after it's either 10, 11, or 12 years, somewhere in that age range, or in that range of years, that if a person stays in jail longer than that, um, they essentially become fully institutionalized, which the Menendez brothers clearly have been in there way longer than that. They've been in there for 3.5 decades. So people that have become institutionalized, it's not uncommon for them to get out into the real world, become extremely overwhelmed, and purposely commit a crime to go back in, because they are so used to that high level of control and structure, that they just can't function, so to speak, on the outside world. So, oh, you tried to stay out of this case? Okay. So some bitch saying, I just hope the public don't have the expectations they did for Gypsy. Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say. I think they absolutely do. And that's why I think it's the best idea. I hope that their lawyers, their family members, I hope that people seriously give them this advice to stay away from public social media, because you already know. You know how the internet goes. And so one little thing that they do wrong. I mean, imagine Erik does decide to leave his marriage, just like Gypsy did. People are going to judge him. People are going to say, wow, you're a terrible person. This woman waited 25 years for you, held you down. How dare you do this to her? Same thing with Gypsy and Ryan. They got married in jail, just as the Menendez brothers did. And I mean, she lasted 60 days being married to him, being out in the real world. So who knows? It's a very curious topic to me. It's a very interesting topic. And again, it's why I started reading Tammy's book, to get a better insight of her, of him, of, just their relationship. But the book was written in 2005. That was almost 20 years ago. So I don't even know what that relationship looks like now. Who knows? We just don't know. It remains to be seen. And as curious as I am, it would just be better for them to stay off of social media. My curiosity and the public's curiosity is just not more important than them living a peaceful life and not being hated all over social media the way that, Gypsy is. I mean, the hate is tremendous, you know. And I think it will be for them as well if they make any sort of misstep or do something that people don't agree with. And then on top of it, you're always going to have the people that believe that they never should have gotten out to begin with. Those people exist. I see them in the comment sections. So I don't know. Um, it's a wait and see thing. Sadly, if I have to give my prediction, which I don't, but I'm going to because it's my channel. um, I don't think they make it. That is my prediction. And I hope that I'm wrong, because that's kind of a terrible thing to say. But just outside looking in, everything is stacked against them. Everything is stacked against them. And if they make it it would definitely be a good thing, I guess. It would definitely be a story to be told, but I just feel like it's unlikely. But for some odd reason, and I don't know why, I think that Lyle's marriage is going to last. For some reason, I think Eric's the one that's going to have trouble, but I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But that's just what I think. So, I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to say about this yet. I want to finish reading her book. And then I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to just outright read the book to you guys. And again, I wanted to kind of do that in 3 or 4 live streams. I think we could get through it in 3 or 4 live streams. Probably 3, really. I don't know if I just want to read it outright, or give you guys cliff notes. But I kind of feel like I want to read it outright because, yeah, it's just better to hear from her. Am I going to read the letter? I already did. You didn't hear it? Did you miss the letter, some bitch? Do you want me to reread it for you? I'll reread it for you. Yeah, I'll read it right now. So this is the letter in full. I'll reread. It says, I've been trying to avoid Dad. This letter was addressed to his cousin Andy. Okay. His cousin Andy committed suicide. I believe that he had drug addiction later on in life. He did testify in their first trial. Okay. So Erik and Andy were very close. It has been said that when they were around 10 years old, Jose sat them in the den and put on hardcore porn and made them watch it, which obviously they felt, very uncomfortable and crazy about. So, but it became known that Erik had confided in Andy some things. So they were forbidden to hang out, be around each other, talk to each other, anything. So the only way that they could really correspond, they would send letters. So Erik sent this letter 8 months before the murders to his cousin Andy. And this is the letter. This is what it said. Quote, I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know. I'll make it through this. I can handle it, Andy. I need to stop thinking about it. That is the letter. That's what he wrote. So, again, this being written 8 months before the murders and him saying, he's so grossed out, his dad's so overweight, he's still sexually assaulting him, coming into his room. He's staying up every night thinking he might come in, and he did, you know. So I believe them. I do believe that there was sexual trauma. I mean, there were things presented in the trial at I think 6 or 7 years old. Erik was taken to the doctor because his throat hurt. And I don't think I need to draw the picture for you guys of why that would be, but it was signs of sexual abuse. And nothing was done about it. So imagine your 6 or 7-year old having throat issues again, and it's because of sexual assault. So this stuff, I mean, they had told other family members. They told a female cousin, Lyle, did. So they told people, before any of this happened, they told people, and no one did anything. Um, Kitty's sister did tell her what Lyle told her daughter about what Jose was doing to him. He was sexually assaulting him. And Kitty, according to her sister, grabbed Lyle by his arm, told him he was exaggerating, and that sometimes his dad needed to punish him when he was doing things wrong, and she marched him back to Jose. It's very disturbing. And again, this is just not a case that you can look at with any type of black and white thinking. And someone that does a lot of black and white thinking is the former prosecutor, Pamela. What is her name? Pamela Bozanic. I think that's how it's pronounced. And again, if you want to watch that documentary, it is on Netflix right now, and she is in it. And I can tell you, she's a little kooky. But she has always said that they are liars, that they meticulously constructed this murder, and then they meticulously constructed their defense. And she just seems to have very black and white thinking. She said it was, pathetic that they were put into these pastel sweaters and made to look like these good boys. And, she absolutely does not believe them. But I don't know how you can watch these two, at the time, young men on the stand, watching them cry. I've seen people fake cry, okay? And there's just some types of crying that you cannot fake, in my opinion. And it was just very real watching them recount their sexual abuse. And Erik has said that he almost regrets ever even talking about it, that it was so much and caused so much pain for him to relive it and for his family and all of that, that he kind of wishes that he just never talked about it at all. So, it's a very interesting case, but once I get through this book, I do plan on reading it or reading more excerpts from you guys. Oh, there was something else I wanted to show you. Hold on a second. I'm gonna pull up these, let's see. Nope, not that. Not that. The excerpts from her book. I thought I sent them to myself. Hang on just a second. Did I open this? Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to show you guys 2 pages of it. Hang on. Bear with me. Bear with me. I thought I already had these sent to myself, but apparently I did not. So let me send them, and then I'm going to show them, and we can read them together. And again, this is from Tammy's book, which is no longer being printed. It's very hard to find. You can't even find it on any kind of main audiobook or anything like that. So whoever did this, put it on Reddit, thank you. Because I was looking for it everywhere last night, and I was getting irritated that I just could not find it anywhere. And then I thought to myself, oh, go to Reddit. Reddit has everything always. And sure enough, they did. For some reason, these don't want to send. Hang on. Hang on. Just waiting for them to come through. And they're not coming through. Why will these not send? It's so weird. Okay. Well, you know what? I could just read them out to you guys if that's what you guys want to do. But for some reason, these emails are taking a while to come through. So I'll leave this picture up, and then I just want to read to you guys 2 parts of what I've read so far out of her book. And I want to put this picture up. Okay, so this first page that I'm going to read you guys, this is when she first saw him in the prison. Okay, so she comes in, and this is how she describes it. She says that, he extended his hand to her, but she didn't really take it, so he pulls back, and then this is what she says. She says, "There's a smile in his eyes. I meet his gaze. I feel no romantic sparks, no crazy love at first sight, no sexual flashes, nothing. This man is very cute, but I feel nothing specific. If something is happening between us, I'm not aware of it. None of this seems normal. But then neither is it normal to meet a man for the first time with whom I could say, I'm already good friends." Finally, Erik says, "I've been waiting a very long time for this moment." He says this, and without waiting for a response, seats me at our table. There's a crowd around us, but he doesn't see it. Erik is a very focused person, I will learn. And at that moment, he has a visitor. I'm not sure what Erik is thinking because he's asking me a lot of questions about my trip. Have I had any problems? Do I like to fly? Am I okay at my hotel? What's Minnesota like? Was I scared to enter the prison? And so on. If he was only focused on himself, this might not be such a problem, but he's trying to engage me. Finally, he blurts out, "I want to know everything." I respond, "Everything? We don't have that kind of time. Maybe if you just start with an easy question." With a friendly look to him, he goes on to ask about my dreams and fears. An unsettling pain breezes through me, a ghost from the past, and I veto nearly all of his questions. I decide to ask my own questions. I ask about his likes and dislikes, and then it suddenly comes out. The question I should have had enough compassion and wisdom to avoid. Is there any hope for you to get out of prison? He is surprised at first and then answers, "I don't know. I'd like to win my appeal, obviously, but I dread going back to trial." So I find this just weird in the way that, she's asking him his likes and dislikes, but they've been corresponding for 4 years. So how did you not already know those things? You know, and then she describes feeling absolutely nothing, just nothing at all for him, but then simultaneously describes him as a good friend. And I just find that very conflicting. Okay, so The second page that I'm going to read you, I found interesting as well. So she said, as much as I learned about his civility and compassion and pain through our correspondence, I can't say Erik was really a part of my life in any meaningful way until the startling summer day when I visited him in prison for the first time. And again, I find that strange. They were writing for 4 years, and he's again he's telling her his pain, his all of his things, and she doesn't see him as any meaningful part of her life, and I just find that weird. But then she goes on to say, uh, the morning of my first visit is more complicated than I expected. Despite its infamous name, I discover that the prison is not only concealed from the town, it is a guarded secret. Naively, I had come to Northern California expecting to find street signs pointing the way to the prison. Instead, I find myself wandering into one business establishment after the other, asking the same question: can you tell me how to get to Folsom Prison? Nobody can help me. After hours of confusion, I decide to try the one establishment that always offers directions. I wander into the Exxon station and ask for directions to California State Prison, Sacramento, aka the old Folsom Prison. Prison, the man says. He scratches his head and glances at me as if I'm in the wrong state. I can't say I know where the prison is, but I don't think it's around here, he says. My directions claim Folsom Prison is supposed to be here, and this is Folsom. I don't yet realize there is a veil of secrecy hiding the walls of the prison. This is interesting. It is its own city with its own name, Repressa. That is the name of the city that Folsom Prison sits in, Repressa. Isn't that weird? Repressa, Repressa. And it has its own zip code. Repressa doesn't even exist on many maps. The prison officials work hard to maintain this curtain of fog and iron. There is only one telltale sign that a maximum security prison might exist among the densely forested upper middle class neighborhoods of Folsom, California. A camp-like place card into which the words California State Prison, Sacramento are carved. This wooden signpost rests at the mouth of a quiet lane, artfully inconspicuous. Otherwise, there is no other indication of a prison and no clue as to what really lies at the end of this country road. Although I turn onto the road to locate the prison and visit a man I only know from his handwriting, I still would laugh at the notion that I would one day marry Erik Menendez. Even during the years that will follow, when I turn onto the prison road, I'll find myself asking, what on earth am I doing here? But on this day, I am simply preparing to visit a friend I have never met, but have been corresponding with for many years. This isn't a date. There are no romantic sparks to our letters. Erik is the most unavailable man I've ever known, a prisoner. And just think about that for a second and how that plays into Hybristophilia. This is the most unavailable man. In the very, first chapter, again, she describes feeling very safe with him. There is a safety for women that, like she said, these ghosts from her past crept up and she didn't want to answer any of his questions. Obviously she's speaking of some past trauma with men or a man or whatever, but her saying he's the most unavailable man in the world, and yet she marries him, and again, with this safety that she talks about and feeling safe, how does she feel now that he's going to be released and she's 63 years old and he's 53 years old and he's now going to be a very available man? That unavailable man is going to be gone. So, how does this play out for them? I guess we'll have to see, guys. And when I'm finished, reading all of this book again, I would like to read it to you guys. So, until next time, take care. Let me give the Jerry Springer outro. Take care. And I forget what he said. What does he say? Take care and enjoy each other. Something. I don't know. But either way, I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.